Why have Jews been expelled from everywhere? Do you know what names like Albert Einstein and the cheeks of Jesus Christ have in common? They are great figures, geniuses, and their undeniable contributions to the history of human development. Absolutely true. But there's another commonality that fewer people notice. They were all of Jewish origin, a people often recognized as the most intelligent in the world, and at the same time, among the most persecuted globally. Why is that? Join us in exploring this in today's video. According to the latest data from 2023, Jewish people currently make up only about 0.2% of the world's population, yet they account for 20% of Nobel Prize winners and 11.6% of the world's billionaires. Although in terms of the number of billionaires, China holds the highest percentage with 31.3% and was the first country to surpass $1,000 billionaires. The Jewish population is just 1% of China's. This pushes the ratio of billionaires per capita among Jewish people to the highest in the world. Some prominent examples of ultra-wealthy Jewish individuals include tech billionaire Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the co-founders of Google, and Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle Corporation. These are individuals with immense wealth and control over powerful tech empires, shaping the modern world day by day. Yet, alongside this brilliance, the Jewish people have endured thousands of years of wandering across the globe, a journey of survival marked by blood and tears before reuniting in the land of Israel today. The tumultuous history of the Jewish people began about 4,000 years ago. According to the Old Testament, Abraham, the patriarch of the Jews, led his clan from Ur in Mesopotamia in search of a promised land. Thus, they can be seen as a people born from a history of exile and longing. They have always believed that wherever they could survive was a place granted to them by God, or at least they held an unshakable faith to that effect. Later, they arrived in Canaan, a land inhabited by the Canaanites for thousands of years, and boldly declared it the promised land, bestowed upon them by God. The Jewish people are a religious ethnicity as their ethnic and religious identities are deeply intertwined. Judaism is the traditional faith of the Jewish people. Over time, religion became the very thing that forced them from their homeland, as conflicts with other religions escalated, leading to bloody clashes. From the late Bronze Age to around the 13th century BC, they were primarily under Egyptian rule. Around 1250 BC, the Israelites began entering the Canaan region, facing fierce resistance from the local considerations. By 1175 BC, a new group known as the Philistines, the ancestors of modern Palestinians, established a military alliance along the southern coast to assert dominance in the area. However, under King David's leadership in the 10th century BC, the Israelites ultimately defeated both the Philistines and the native Canaanites, capturing the city of Jerusalem. From then on, Canaan truly became the land of Israel. After King David, his son, King Solomon, ascended to the throne. His reign is known as the Golden Age of a united Israel. But this golden era didn't last long. The United Kingdom of Israel soon split into two separate entities, the Northern Kingdom, called Samaria, and the Southern Kingdom, known as Judah. These two kingdoms coexisted until around 722 BC, when the Assyrians destroyed the Northern Kingdom of Samaria. The year 586 BC marked the fall of Judah, which became a province of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. After the collapse of Neo-Babylon in 539 BC, it was annexed by the Persians, and the Persian province of Yehud was the former Judah. In 198 BC, the Seleucid Empire, under Antiochus III, seized control of Judah. In 140 BC, the Jews in Judah established a semi-autonomous dynasty called the Hasmonean within the Seleucid Empire. As the Seleucid Empire crumbled, Judah expanded into neighboring regions. In 67 BC, the Hasmonean civil war broke out over power struggles. Roman Republic forces intervened, turning Judah into a vassal state and marking the decline of the Hasmonean dynasty. Herod the Great replaced the last Hasmonean client king. From 37 BC to the 6th year AD, the region became a Roman province known as Judea. Between the 6th and 4th years BC, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in the Roman province of Judea. As an adult, he became a preacher and healer, traveling widely. At age 30, his teachings touched the hearts of many, who believed him to be the Messiah sent to redeem humanity. Between the years 29 and 33, he was arrested in Jerusalem after being betrayed by his disciple Judas Iscariot. The Romans executed Jesus, viewing his claim to be the king of the Jews as blasphemous and treasonous. His disciples firmly believed he rose from the dead and appeared to them. They convinced others to believe in Jesus, gradually giving rise to a new religion, Christianity. Thus, Jerusalem became a place of profound suffering and despair, but also of hope and salvation for Christians. In 64, Florus became the Roman governor of Judea. He was notorious for his tyrannical rule and disregard for the religious life of the Jews. When the Roman Empire needed funds for wars and construction projects, Florus exploited the people even more harshly with heavy taxation. This pushed tensions to a breaking point, sparking the Jewish revolt known as the First Jewish-Roman War. The uprising was fierce in Jerusalem and spread across Judea. In 67, Cestius Gallus led 20,000 troops to Judea to suppress the rebellion but failed after a 6-month siege. Subsequently, Roman Emperor Nero dispatched the renowned general Vespasian to Judea. Vespasian crushed the Jewish rebellion in Galilee and surrounding areas. His Roman army then besieged Jerusalem. However, before the final assault, Vespasian received dire news from Rome. Emperor Nero had suddenly died. Vespasian returned to Rome, and after becoming emperor, he entrusted his son Titus with completing the suppression of Jerusalem. On April 14, 70, Titus arrived with 70,000 Roman troops, including 4 elite legions, and began the siege of Jerusalem. The battle was brutal. At the time, Jerusalem was defended by nearly 40,000 well-equipped soldiers and fortified with 3 layers of extremely sturdy walls. Yet, in the face of the overwhelming Roman might, Jerusalem fell on September 8, 70. According to some records, over 1.1 million people perished in this bloody historic battle of antiquity. In 132, the Bar Kokhba revolt erupted, the final war between the Jews and the Roman Empire, ending a turbulent chapter in Judea's history. Under the rule of the tyrannical governor Quintus Tinius Rufus, the Jews were treated as mere slaves. Pushing tensions to their peak, they meticulously planned the revolt, secretly stockpiling weapons and constructing complex tunnel networks. When Emperor Hadrian returned to Rome after inspecting the eastern provinces, the Jews launched their uprising. Using guerrilla tactics and their pre-built tunnel systems, they effectively attacked the Romans. Led by Bar Kokhba, the Jews killed many Roman soldiers. At its height, Bar Kokhba's forces numbered up to 400,000. The Roman army, with 20,000 troops at the time, struggled to quell the rebellion. Emperor Hadrian summoned the renowned general Julius Severus, then governor of Britain, to bring a massive army from distant Europe to assist. In total, about 10 Roman legions participated, swelling their forces to 120,000. An immense military presence reflecting Rome's determination to crush the Jews. Severus advanced slowly but with ruthless precision. Facing this disciplined and overwhelming force, Bar Kokhba suffered repeated defeats. In the summer of 135, Bar Kokhba and his remaining troops retreated to the fortress of Betar for a final stand against the Romans. Bar Kokhba's fate remains unclear, but he likely fought to his last breath. The Romans razed Jewish strongholds, towns, and villages. Estimates suggest 580,000 Jews perished in the campaign, with the Romans also suffering heavy losses. After the war, Rome had to recruit vast numbers of soldiers from across the empire to replenish its ranks. Enraged by the Jews' resistance, Emperor Hadrian renamed Judea Palestina and banned Jewish religious practices and activities. The Jews were completely expelled from Jerusalem and scattered across the world. This marked the day they lost the homeland they had taken from the Canaanites nearly 2,000 years earlier. In 312, Roman Emperor Constantine I began supporting Christianity, ushering in an era where it became the dominant cultural force in Rome. Though Jews did not adopt Christianity, they were permitted to visit Jerusalem on the anniversary of the destruction of their temple. Constantine I was also the first ruler of the Eastern Roman Empire after the Western Roman Empire's collapse. Around the 7th century, the rise of Islam significantly influenced the Middle East's cultural and religious landscape. Islam also intersected with Judaism, as Jerusalem is a profoundly holy site for Muslims, believed to be where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. In 629, war broke out between the Arabs and the Eastern Roman Empire. In April 637, after a prolonged siege, the Arabs captured Jerusalem, defeating the Eastern Roman forces and taking control of the region. The Jews supported the Muslims, as their living conditions improved significantly compared to under Christian rule. After conquering southern Spain, Muslim rulers fostered a multi-religious community. During this period, Muslims, Jews, and Christians coexisted with a degree of harmony. The year 912 is considered the start of a golden age for Jewish culture in Spain. Jews were allowed to practice their religion and live according to their own laws and scriptures. Spain became the largest Jewish center, especially under the reigns of Abd al-Rahman III and al-Hakam II. Jewish religious, cultural, and economic life flourished. However, with al-Hakam II's death in 976, the kingdom began to disintegrate, and the Jewish position grew precarious. This golden age ended with the Cordoba massacre in 1013, followed by the Granada massacre in 1066, which killed many Jews in the city, the first major persecution of Jews on the peninsula under Muslim rule. In 1078, the Seljuk Empire, a Sunni Muslim state, was established and conquered Jerusalem, oppressing Christians. The call for the First Crusade, when the Eastern Roman Emperor sought to reclaim Jerusalem, sparked massacres of Jews in the Rhineland. Some historians consider this the first major Jewish pogrom. Between late 1095 and early 1096, months before the official crusade began in August, attacks targeted Jewish communities in France and Germany. To Christians, Jews were seen as enemies no less than Muslims and faced brutal punishments like crucifixion. Between 5,000 and 10,000 Jews were killed. By the 13th century, Jews had settled across Europe but faced widespread discrimination. In 1215, the Pope ordered Jews to be distinguished from others by their clothing or markings to prevent mingling with Christians. In 1229, King Henry III of England forced Jews to pay taxes equal to half their property's value. A few years later, King Louis of France expelled Jews from France. Most then moved to Germany and further east. In 1343, while much of Europe treated Jews harshly, a bright spot emerged. Persecuted Jews from Western Europe were invited to Poland by Casimir the Great. He banned the kidnapping of Jewish children and imposed severe penalties for desecrating Jewish cemeteries. Casimir allowed large-scale Jewish settlement in Poland and protected them as subjects of the king. In 1347, the Black Death swept through Europe. This natural disaster killed an estimated 30% to 60% of Europe's population and about 33% of the Middle East's. With limited scientific and medical knowledge, people believed the plague was divine punishment for sins against God. To earn forgiveness, they sought to purge heretics and troublemakers. Much of Europe's population blamed Jews, torturing them into confessing to poisoning wells. Massacres erupted across Europe. By 1351, there were 350 anti-Jewish pogroms, with around 510 Jewish communities wiped out. In 1596, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was formed, still considered a haven for Jews due to its preferential treatment of them. By 1648, Poland's Jewish population reached 450,000, with the global Jewish population estimated at 750,000. But by 1795, the Commonwealth ceased to exist, temporarily erased from Europe's map. Most Jews worldwide still lived in this region, though they no longer enjoyed their former privileges. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted, abolishing the monarchy and birthing the French Republic. In 1791, France granted Jews full legal rights and citizenship. Around the same time, across the Atlantic, in 1790, U.S. President George Washington wrote to the Jewish community in Rhode Island, essentially stating that the government would not interfere in individual religious matters. By the 19th century, Jews had spread across Europe, achieving notable success. Benjamin Disraeli became the UK's Prime Minister in 1868, the first person of Jewish origin to lead a European government. With their innate financial acumen, Jews quickly amassed wealth in Europe. The most prominent example is the Rothschild family, who built a financial and banking empire. At their peak, they were said to possess the largest fortune in world history. However, during this period, anti-Semitism also emerged in the Russian Empire. Jews were largely confined to the empire's western territories and barred from moving elsewhere unless they converted to Russian Orthodoxy. A massive wave of anti-Jewish pogroms swept through southwestern Russia, now Ukraine, from 1881 to 1882, with over 200 incidents recorded. This fueled the early Zionist movement. Between 1880 and 1920, about 2 million Jews emigrated from the Russian Empire, mostly to the UK or the US. The late 19th century also saw the rise of Zionism, the modern Jewish nationalist movement. It called for Jews to return and settle around Jerusalem, their sacred homeland. After 2,000 years of wandering, the Jewish community began returning to their ancestral land, laying the groundwork for the future state of Israel, a nation truly theirs. In 1903, the Russian Empire published a report containing minutes from Zionist meetings, alleging a Jewish plot to dominate the world. It claimed Jews planned to dismantle Christian civilization and establish a global state under their rule. Translated into many languages and spread worldwide in the early 20th century, this fueled anti-Semitism. When World War first broke out in 1914, Jews eager to prove loyalty to their countries joined the war effort. Initially, Russian Jews were no exception, but as Russia's expulsion policies took hold, many began supporting the opposing side. About 500,000 Jews served in the Russian army, while nearly 100,000 fought for Germany. Despite their enlistment, Jews were accused of draft dodging and profiteering in both nations. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, expressing support for establishing Palestine as a national home for Jews. The term national home was vague. Many Jews interpreted it as meaning all of Palestine would become a Jewish state. This marked the start of the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian land dispute. From 1918, after World War first ended, to 1933 was another golden age for Jews. By 1930, the global Jewish population hit a record 15 million, comparable to today's numbers. During this time, Jews engaged in exploitative businesses across Europe, notably in Germany. Profiting from valuables collected during the war, they amassed wealth. As Germany plunged into economic crisis, Jews, rather than lowering prices, raised the cost of essentials like bread, causing widespread suffering. They reportedly discarded surplus food rather than give it to the starving. This enraged Germany's people and government. The most brutal era, a nightmare for Jews, began in 1933 with the rise of Nazi Germany. With extreme nationalist ideology, Nazism deemed Jews a mongrel race infiltrating and exploiting Aryan society. Seen as a threat and subhuman, Jews faced persecution. The first Nazi concentration camps opened in March 1933, shortly after Hitler became chancellor and his party gained control of the police. On April 1, 1933, Hitler declared a nationwide boycott of Jewish businesses, stripping Jews of rights to professions like law, medicine, tax consulting, music, and notary work. On August 2, 1934, President Hindenburg died, and Hitler assumed leadership of both state and government, consolidating absolute power. Germany became a totalitarian state under Hitler, who also became supreme commander of the armed forces. On the morning of November 7, 1938, the pivotal event occurred. Herschel Greenspan, a 17-year-old Jew, shot vom Rath, a German embassy official in Paris. Despite efforts to save him, vom Rath died on November 9 from severe wounds. His death sparked outrage in Germany, serving as a pretext for massacres of Jews across Nazi Germany and Austria. The attack, dubbed Kristallnacht, or Night of Broken Glass, for the shattered glass littering the streets, saw synagogues destroyed, hundreds killed, thousands of Jewish businesses damaged, and 30,000 Jewish men arrested and sent to concentration camps. On November 15, all Jewish students were expelled from German schools. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, igniting World War II. Over 2 million Polish Jews fell under German control and were forced into designated ghettos, the oldest, most dilapidated parts of towns. When Germany and its allies invaded the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, German forces carried out at least 2,019 massacres, killing about 50,000 Jews. The most infamous was the Babi Yar massacre, where 33,771 Jews were slaughtered between September 29 and 30, 1941. The year 1942 marked the height of the genocide. At least 4,348 Jews were killed in gas chambers using CO at extermination centers. On March 27, German authorities began deporting Jews from France to Auschwitz, where Zyklon B became widely used in gas chambers to kill large numbers quickly. Typically 800 to 1,200 victims died within 20 minutes. On May 7, Germans began gassing operations at Sobibor, killing 167,000 Jews. From July 22, Jews were sent to Treblinka, where about 925,000 were murdered. On December 17, Allied nations, including the UK and US governments, issued a press release condemning Germany's mass murder of European Jews and vowing retribution. By September 1944, US forces neared Germany's border. On November 25, 1944, Heinrich Himmler ordered the destruction of Auschwitz's gas chambers and crematoria to erase evidence of the genocide. On December 11, the last gassing of prisoners occurred in Hamburg. By 1945, concentration camps were liberated one by one. On April 25, Soviet and U.S. troops met at Torgau, Germany. Hitler committed suicide in his Berlin bunker on April 30. German forces surrendered shortly after. World War II ended with the Allies' total victory, concluding the most horrific genocide of Jews in human history. Statistics showed 27 main camps and an estimated 1,100 satellite camps. About 6 million Jews were killed, 1/3 of the global Jewish population, and 2/3 of Europe's Jews. Due to the genocide, Jewish migration to Palestine surged during World War II, 1939 to 1945, and continued afterward. In 1949, the United Nations ended Britain's mandate over Palestine, dividing it into 2 independent states, one Arab and one Jewish, with Jerusalem under UN control. Arabs rejected this, as Jews, with 32% of the population, received 56% of the land. Unequal divisions breed conflict, and soon wars escalated, claiming many lives. Jewish leaders formally declared the State of Israel on May 14, 1948. After thousands of years of exile, wandering, and massacres, Jews returned to their promised land from 2,000 years ago, aided by Western powers. Soon after, the First Arab-Israeli War erupted, as Arabs from Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Jordan united with their Palestinian kin, or at least shared a mutual disdain for Jews. After over a year of fighting, the Arab League suffered a crushing defeat to the fledgling state. They not only failed to reclaim land but lost more. Old grudges unresolved, new debts piled up. Less than a decade later, in 1956, Egypt's Nasser rose to power, reigniting dreams of a united, mighty Arab bloc. To achieve this, he had to remove the thorn in his soul, Israel. With aid from Britain and France, Israel swiftly seized the Sinai Peninsula and could have defeated Nasser in Cairo, if not for Soviet and U.S. intervention. This was a severe blow to Nasser early in his rule. In 1967, Nasser allied with Jordan and Syria for another attempt to crush Israel. But with the Jews' military and economic strength, and the alliance's internal discord, they were no match. In just 6 days, Israel defeated all three armies, capturing Gaza from Egypt, the West Bank from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. Nasser died of a heart attack in 1970 after this defeat. Sadat, Nasser's successor, allied with Syria for another strike on Israel. Their ambitions were lower, no longer aiming to destroy the Jews, just hoping to reclaim Sinai and Golan. But hope without strength is futile. Too weak to challenge Israel, backed by Western powers, they failed again. Under U.S. mediation, Sadat negotiated with Israel to recover Sinai. Tired of decade-long wars with Arabs, Israel agreed to return Sinai. But Syria's Golan Heights remain in Israeli hands to this day.